projects. We use a consultant to do, contractor to do that. We have like 3 to do that.
The mayor aware of this?
Yeah.
Okay, call to order, please. Any public comments related to agenda items? Anybody in the audience on the phone? Any public comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Move on to the approval of the meeting minutes of November 18th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Commissioner Gale, move. Second? Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you. All those, any additions, deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, consideration and potential action regarding developers permit agreement, reimbursement agreement, Stallion Ridge in Glastonbury. Who's taking that?
Mike Hurley. Nope,
Is that-
excuse me. Mike Hurley, Manager of Engineering. Yes, we just need a map for this to go up, just easier. So March 22nd, 2019, we received an application to build a water main in Glastonbury, to build 4,700 linear feet of water main along Somerset Road, Bell Street, and Stallion Drive for a development they had on Stallion Drive. And you can see from the map, the yellow is the development itself. The water main, however, had to come from quite a distance away down way over on the right lower half of the map there, all the way up, about 4,700 linear feet. But that 4,700 linear feet also included the development. So that project was completed in June 2022. It was paved finally in 2024, and it's going to be accepted in 2025. So because this is somewhat unusual, but because the water main was constructed from and extended from such a far away, it passed 26 properties. Those are the starred properties on the map before arriving at the development itself. And we know that if those folks, those currently served now by the water main, they don't have a connection. So when they do connect, they're going to have to pay what we call a frontage charge or a Class 1 fee, which is currently at $95 a linear foot. And that was established some time ago to reimburse, say, the district when we put water mains in. So when people connect, they pay that frontage fee to help reimburse us for the water main. But in this case, because the water main was installed by the developer has asked for permission to enter into a reimbursement agreement with us. And that's perfectly allowed by Section W4H of the Water District Ordinances, as long as the reimbursement agreement is, all those connections are done within 10 years of the, from the time that the water main is accepted, which would be in 2025. And as long as the reimbursement, the total reimbursement cost that he would receive does not exceed the construction costs of the project. So that's what he's asking for, a reimbursement agreement. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Salemi, then Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mike, is this the part of Glastonbury where they had trouble with the groundwater, that the wells, they had, if I remember, there were parts of Glastonbury where they had
Yes.
radiation, or in water. This is not that area?
I don't believe so. I don't believe that was it. No, it's not one of those.
So there isn't a tremendous incentive on the part of the people that get the assessment, unless they just want to have public water versus.
Correct.
They don't have a big. If you were in a neighborhood where the well water was, poor quality, you might want to just. And then I remember from being involved in development, I remember the 10-year thing. So after 10 years, it just becomes ours, and the developer doesn't get.
Correct.
Yeah, so that was my understanding too. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Taylor and then Mr. Patel.
Yes, Commissioner.
Mike, what do we do to ensure that whatever is put in by the developer meets MDC standards? In other words, that the work has been done at such a level quality-wise that we don't have to worry about having to go back ourselves and either,
Good question.
or what have you, okay?
Yes, so this is installed by DPA, so it's done by a contract, and in the contract, there are to follow our standards and requirements from our project manual, just like any CIP project or anything we do in the public right-of-way. Oh, yes, and it's also inspected by our own consultant inspectors or our own staff.
Commissioner Patel.
How does contractor recover his investment's interest?
So.
Automatically is allowed? Go ahead.
Yes. So during the 10-year period, if one of these property owners wants to connect, he'll go through our permit process and we'll have to collect the frontage charges from him. And at that point there, we will forward that to the contractor, as long as that all happens within that 10-year period.
Within 10-year period, rate remains the same.
Yes. Well, from time to time, but yes,
Who changes? MDC changes it?
the board does.
Board, yeah, board.
Yes, yes, correct. So that 95 could go up to $100.
So in the past, how do you come up generally recommend calculations to a board that what it should be? Do you take in consideration investment, interest rate, etc.? Is there a specific formula?
Yes, so we take into consideration the cost of water mains at that time, and whatever other cost factors come into play to be able to recalculate and establish that rate per foot. And remember, this rate is only half of it, so it's one side of the street versus the other street, okay?
Thank you.
Vice Chair Gale.
Yeah, thank you. When one of these starred properties decides to connect, and we go through the
Permit.
process of collecting an assessment from them, is it a one-to-one reimbursement of the dollars we collect that we're going to give to this developer, or do we have expenses on our side in collecting this money?
I do believe we just passed that through, one-to-one. We pass it right through.
Have we ever thought about what our expenses are in going through the process of collecting the money?
Yeah, we do have other charges associated with tapping the main.
Chris, can you go up to the mic?
Sorry.
So, Chris Levac, MDC. So there, as far as the administrative review of looking up the property, and this is recorded on a real estate level for that property, that we know that there's a potential for reimbursement of that beneficial assessment for the frontage cost. The actual connection hookups are always charged, so there's a tap fee, a meter fee, meter pit charges, those type of things all go into the equation that ultimately the property owner would have to pay us for. So MDC is collecting our cost for the physical connection, but the administrative charges to look at the real estate records. Other than there is an administrative review fee that we would charge for this new connection as well, to look up the real estate charges and calculation of the assessment, because we do have to calculate an assessment. Currently, right now, that's $670 that we would assess the property owner on top of the actual frontage fees.
And that we would keep.
Yes, we would keep the $670.
Okay, thank you.
Just
a quick question on, so there is a charge that we have that in my experience, we don't collect from the developer, but we do collect from the municipality, and it's for the hydrants. The municipality gets to tell us how many hydrants they want, I think, or where they want them and so forth. And then, but they pay for the installation of the hydrants, is that correct? The developer, they.
Developer puts them in,
Yeah, but-
and after the 1-year period, the warranty period, then the town starts paying for it. The town interacts with the design process to establish where they go and how many.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I also want to mention that we do charge an administrative fee for that as well.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Mike. Good job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll call for a vote, right?
Somebody needs to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We got Commissioner DeBella, second.
I'm not on the committee.
Oh, you're not on the committee. Oh, sorry. Oh, Commissioner Curry, and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gale.
Yeah, just a question. I'm reading it. It says, it's a two-part resolution in here. To authorize the installation of 4,700 feet of 8-inch ductile iron. I thought the main was already in. So I guess I'm a little confused why we're authorizing the installation. I get authorizing to enter into the reimbursement agreement.
Do we have an answer? Anybody? Sue?
Sorry about that. I missed that question. Was there?
First part of the resolution. Just-
It looks like we're reauthorizing again.
It's part two of the.
Oh, of the vote?
being voted.
Yes, so that's the first part of the vote is to vote from a Class 2 to a Class 1 so that so that the fees can be paid. That's the first part of the vote. The second vote is for the reimbursement agreement itself.
We're not authorizing the installation. It's already installed. We're just
Correct.
changing the classification.
Yes. Generally, this process comes after the water main's installed and we have all the costs aligned, so we know what we're getting into with the developer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, report on the summary of water main breaks, which I think we have.
Yeah, we have Chris Levesque, and we also have staff here to talk about if there's any specific, we've been talking a lot about water main breaks over the last couple of water bureaus. So if there's any specific issues or concerns of water main breaks, we have staff here. We're happy to answer them. Chris is going to go through just a summary of, you've asked for the year for response time. So Chris, go ahead.
Sure. Chris Levesque with the MDC. Just a high-level overview, and we did provide some printouts of some of the communications that we send out for every single water main break and our response that goes out internally as well as externally as well. We do send mass notifications out for those that are affected. So what does operations measure? We first log the time of the call was received. So that could be a call from our customer, a call from a police department, another town official, just reporting that they're seeing some water, whether it's coming through a crack in the road, in the grass, in the curb, maybe the road collapsed. There's a couple different ways. We also track, which I'm going to get into as far as our leak detection program, which we'll be covering after. Second measure is time leak confirmed. So by the time we get the call, and then we dispatch our staff to go out and investigate the leak. Once the leak's confirmed, we count that time as well. So we're going to go over some of those metrics. And then also when we actually take the water main out of service. So, and there's a little bit of asterisks on this. Some water mains we actually repair while it's still under pressure. We can make that repair so no customers are affected. Other water main breaks where they're essentially referred to as a blowout, but that's when the actual water main breaks. We have to shut down the valves, multiple valves sometimes, and make the repair, and then we open those valves and then we put the water main back into service. So that's the other time that gets recorded. So average time to confirm. So this is really when we get the call and then when we respond and confirm that the leak exists. usually it's 45 minutes on average. Now, this also includes the time for the in-depth investigations, and that could spread out some other time too. And we're going to cover some of the technologies we use for performing those in-depth investigations. Probably the other highlight is average time from confirmation to put back into service. So this could be other factors as well, but we're typically about 8.5 hours across the board for 2024. So that's basically from the time of confirmation until we could say water main's no longer leaking or it's no longer broken. Everyone has sufficient pressure and everything else. Again, just maybe highlight what we talk about every Water Bureau meeting is we did finish the year at 241 water main breaks. That includes leaks and breaks.
Chris, tell us the question.
I saw this alert list,
Yes.
and it is South Windsor, many of them.
Yep.
I don't know the history of South Windsor, where they became member, and who installed those pipes, how deep they did they meet all the criteria for what we need, so it doesn't freeze as much, because many breaks are here in South Windsor. Can you explain?
Sure. So this water main's from 1957. The history of who installed that main, whether it was under a developer contract, I didn't pull that information. I can definitely get you that information after this meeting. We wanted to utilize this as basically today's example, what we did today. So the call came in at 7:13 a.m. We dispatched our crew, confirmed that there was a leak at 8:09 a.m. So what I wanted to do is go through what we send out on a communication, a real life example. We shut down the main at 10:49 a.m. And the main was back online at 11:33 a.m. So this was just a printout of all the communications that we send out internally to manage our water main leaks. So, but I can definitely get you that information as far as the depth of this main. Again, it was from 1957, but who installed it, any history I have on it.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my main question was related to many non-member towns who are complaining and going to state for all variety of things. We have to start looking at when they came in, what were the standard, why did we accept it, and is there a recourse for asking them to correct their infrastructure?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
So, you're correct, Commissioner, but in a lot of the non-member towns scenarios, Chris said there could be a situation where the MDC built the main, like in Glastonbury right now. We just built a bunch of water mains in Glastonbury, MDC did. Then you have a developer building one. We just had a presentation here tonight. And in some cases, non-member towns, we actually took over what was there. So for example, when East Hartford became a member in 47, right? The water system in Glastonbury actually used to feed Glastonbury to East Hartford. So it's backwards. And now we're feeding Glastonbury through East Hartford. So we have a lot of challenges in Glastonbury because of the way the system was built, but we accepted it, right? It's part of the system. And so it does create challenges, but as we improve systems within our non-member towns, the towns and/or the residents have to pay a capital improvement charge for that work. So, for example, in Glastonbury, if we have to fix a pump station or upgrade a pump station, we add a CIP fee to the bill, a non-member town CIP fee, so that way the customers in our member towns are not paying for that improvement. And so every town, depending on how much work is done in that town, has a CIP fee, and that's to recoup MDC for that capital investment.
Commissioner Salami.
Thank you. Yeah, and Scott, when the MDC took over East Hartford, they still had a reservoir in Glastonbury. We didn't get MDC water until we built the water main under the Connecticut River to serve East Hartford. So, yeah, it does go back to the 40s. My question, Chris, is this, that, so you get a call about a leak, and then you do a quick investigation and an in-depth one on it. But at some point, you open some sort of ticket or a work order for it. And is that when you start tracking the cost of, is that, I mean, you put all the work and materials and whatever that went into the leak detection and repair and everything into a work order, it's a single work order, and that develops the total cost of that particular leak? Is that?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'll just jump ahead. We'll cover some of these other things as well on this, but I'm gonna
I didn't
try
mean to
answer.
interrupt, I didn't know you were gonna get to that point, that's why.
Yeah, no. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Maybe one more click. This is just an example of that last shot was an example of our Everbridge system where all the leaks are managed and any correspondence internally and externally is managed. So typical response. So your short answer is yes. We do collect all the costs right now collectively under one work order, but the typical process is phased where we do an investigation. There's time expended on that. And then there's time expended on the actual repair of the leak. Right now, it's all captured under one work order. So yes, to your answer, yes, we are tracking the cost of labor as well as equipment, and then any materials expended on that as well.
And that, however many, you said how many leaks we had, so that's all collected in
SAP.
some spot in the budget, yeah, where it gets charged to operational costs or something, or.
Yeah, those are all our labor
Air.
costs, whether it be straight, regular time, overtime, time and a half, double time designations based on the time of the day that we respond to it.
Thank you.
So I did want to, just to go back to Commissioner Patel's question, we do have a extensive asset management program where we look at age of water mains, materials utilized for those water mains in different areas of the district as well. We evaluated East Hartford's very good sandy soil. Leaks tends not to present themselves very well in sand. We have different histories in other towns based on the materials used. So we run all that data together, and then we could predict where we should be replacing water mains on an annual basis, and based on our goal of exceeding 10 miles a year on water main replacements, we budget accordingly and try to prioritize where we're replacing water mains. So hopefully that answers that to best ability at this point. But I did want to highlight, this is our typical response time, what we're currently doing. So tried to break it down in call received, staff on site within 30 minutes. Within an hour, like I reported, it's about 45 minutes. We're determining that's a leak. And now this is what we like to hold ourselves to. So going through here, a couple minute changes that you would see between what we used to do in the past compared to what we do now. We try to get a lot of the work up front. So a lot of the things that we're able to do with the consolidated job spec with utility maintainers. So we have utility maintainers in command center and operations, so they can all perform the same job. So what this allows us to do is that we can actually shut the water main down with the staff that we have in our command center that's run 24/7. We call in the call before you dig through the command center. So a lot of this preemptive work, so when our crew shows up, or when our crew is called in from home, if it's in the middle of the night to respond to a leak, all that preemptive administrative work is already in motion. So when they do arrive, they can get going and start with the work immediately. It also allows us to sort of postpone calling them in, which historically, in the past, I know we did some presentations back in, almost 2 years ago now, for the management study on what our dispatch used to look like, where we would actually call people in just to go investigate the leak. We didn't have the 24/7 operation that we have today. So a lot of time was lost, a lot of expenditure was lost on that, which we weren't able to serve our customers as well as we serve them today.
And
So-
just to add to that, so prior to 2010, without the command center, we had to call a crew in to do an investigation. And now in 2015, with the multitasking job descriptions, the UM1, Utility Maintainer 1, the command center can now actually shut the main off versus, the union had 2 hours to respond to a call. So we don't have to wait that 2 hours anymore. And that saves a lot of time, especially when we have multiple crews during the day or at night, especially during this kind of weather. It gives us that flexibility to actually investigate, shut the water main down, and then make the call before you dig. And you could sometimes, in call before you dig, you could wait 3 hours. As I've said this 1,000 times, try calling the gas company in the middle of the night, try calling the electric company in the middle of the night. Typically what they do is they bring a truck over and they'll hold the pole until 8 o'clock in the morning. If it involves a telephone pole in any way, because they don't want to pay the overtime for whether it's the telephone company or the power company. So we're reliant on the call before you dig process to actually fix it. You can't dig until everything's marked out, right? For safety purposes. So that call before you dig, addressing and working with the other utilities is paramount to us actually fixing the water main break.
Question.
Commissioner DeBella and then Commissioner
Prevents a
Patel.
lot of property damage with accelerating that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you think about this, prior to 2000, we showed the pictures in 2000, prior to 2010, our dispatch center was a dispatch center. It was the group that called in the crews. And nothing happened until the crews got there. So we've cut at least 4 hours of the process out by implementing the command center and the multitasking job description.
Commissioner Patel.
Command center is located where?
125 Maximum Road.
Yes, down the Meadows, right across from,
They order appropriate staff to shut off, right?
yes.
They themselves don't have the ability to turn off or turn on.
No, they do.
They do.
They do. Because they have the crew that responds to the repair, you basically have a UM1 entry level, you have a UM2, you might have a crew leader, and you'll have a supervisor and an operator. And in the command center, you have UM1s, UM2s, crew leaders, and supervisors. So they actually, most of the people that work in the command center have already worked in the repair department or the sewer department. So they've hands-on experience on how to deal with the crisis.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Chris, you got more?
Yeah, we'll finish it up, I guess. One more click. Again, like I mentioned, we do have deployed a number of technologies over the last couple of years, and we did present these at the management study, but we do utilize acoustic listening devices. So with metallic pipe, you can listen for a leak that's transmitted acoustically. And what we've deployed now is almost 800 hydrant caps in particular areas. We just investigated a number of them in East Hartford today for leaks, but to Commissioner Patel's point, we deploy them in areas where we know we have the potential for water main leaks. So areas where we've had histories as well as potential for, based on the material of the pipe and soil conditions in those areas. So we are deploying another 500 this year through that program. Again, this is, it's not all 11,000 of our public hydrants, but we're looking to do a fair share up to 25%. And as we replace water mains, move those over to other areas that are higher priority. So we keep rebalancing that priority. And then operations uses manual correlation. So if there is a potential, we try to pinpoint. So really what we're looking to do is try to find leaks before they become disasters and loss of service for someone. So they don't wake up in the morning and they don't have water for showers, or they don't have water for dinner. So some of that is scheduling around our customers' ability to function, really. So we try not to impact our customers as much as possible.
Now, Chris, those caps you're putting on the hydrants, do you move them around as you work in those areas and complete the mains
Yep.
replacements?
Yeah, yeah, so if it's a new main, we replace where the caps used to be, we'll move them to another area that's higher priority as far as our, looking for leaks, and ultimately, that area will become onto our replacement schedule.
Gotcha. Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, could we go back to one of the beginning slides that listed, there was like half a dozen bullet points and one was 241 leaks?
Yep. Yeah, so that's our leak count for 2024.
All right, so the third bullet from the bottom, you have 241 leaks. The next bullet says 11 breaks had in-depth investigations. Does that correlate to where there's 230 that didn't require?
Yeah, so those were the main breaks that we found on via this hydrant cap acoustic technology. And then what other options is we are able to find some leaks that come through, slight leaks, but what we end up doing is based on if a couple good examples. Recently, I believe we had a school in Rocky Hill, another one in East Hartford. What we end up doing is we look at the schedule that would affect the customer. And if we can postpone making that repair, ultimately comes into the scheduled area, we'll postpone that. So if there's no after-school activities, we'll start work at 5 o'clock. So our command center staff has town officials as well as Board of Education officials on their call list, and we'll coordinate as that work is developing. So we would schedule this off to a different time.
All right, well, my real question was the last bullet.
Yep.
Number of break dash scheduled 18 breaks. How does that relate to the 241?
So yeah, of the 241, 18 have been scheduled. So like I was saying, the example would be working with a Board of Education to maintain service for them. So we'll schedule it out from, like, instead of doing like an immediate response, we'll
Okay.
postpone
Our
that
nursing
repair.
home, hospital, any
Yep.
critical
center.
care facility will tell us you can't shut it down. And a break, if it's a blowout, there's no choice,
Yeah.
right? We have, but if it's a split around where it's just leaking and we can allow it to leak, and it's not gonna have a catastrophic failure, we will do that for the customer. It may be such that the leak is large enough where we're creating brown water, we're creating problems, it's creating low pressure in homes, and we might not have the choice. But when we can, we do.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, we used to get notified back early on on my tenure, when water main breaks were in our towns. Can we go back to that maybe again a little bit more, as to know so we know to respond if we want to at different times? Would that
Yeah.
be possible?
We have the Everbridge system, and we can easily provide the commissioners, Everbridge notices. You'll get a lot of them. You get a lot of them, but we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Chris. Good job. Appreciate it.
You sure you don't have any questions of our people? Because we asked them to be here for this. So if there's any questions, so they don't have to come back.
They manage the process. We put the process in play, and they do an awesome job for us. Obviously, you can see 241 of them, and really no complaints throughout the year. So hats off to them and
Yes.
their ability to execute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Anybody have a word you want
Yeah,
to say?
thank you. We have talked about this in the past, and without, talking about different municipalities, but when we talk about 8 hours from start to finish, that's an average. Some are 4 hours, some are, but when you look at other, municipalities that own their own water system, you could be talking about 2 or 3 days to fix a water main break. Or in some cases, larger municipalities take 24 hours to. One thing Chris didn't mention is we have COVID. We started buying up lots of inventory so that we have the inventory in stock and we don't have to wait for it. And that was a very beneficial to us and our crews and how we can respond. Some municipalities don't have the resources. They don't have the inventory. They're waiting for a valve. A lot of times they knock on our door and ask us if they can borrow a valve or a piece of pipe or whatever it might be. So we have that resource that most utilities don't have.
Very good. Okay, then let's move on to the next item. Report on year-to-date water revenue, I assume for 2024.
Yep, this is for 2024. This is Mike Moore, controller at MDC. And so for 2024, we finished with actuals at 98.1% of budget. We've been relatively consistent, to be 1 to 2 percentage points behind budget throughout Q4. And like I said, we ended at 1.9% under. In terms of CCFs, we had just under 4.5 million actual CCFs in Q4. That's versus a budget of 4.4 million CCFs, so essentially on budget for the quarter. We had 4.1 million CCFs prior year, so we beat prior year by just under 400,000 CCFs. Those are the highlights. I mean, in terms of where the misses are, the primary one is with developer projects. We didn't, we budgeted for more than we actually fulfilled. We were also under budget with both municipal and industrial water. So that's it. Like I said, we ended the year 98.1% versus 100% budget. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
Questions?
What's the,
Yeah, if I just,
Oh, go ahead.
half the story, because that's revenue, but expenditures. Mike, you want to talk about that in terms of the revenue versus the expenditures,
Oh, yeah, sure, one
what we
second.
talked about today?
Yeah, I don't have the expenditures with me, but we did we over-delivered on revenue and we underspent on expenditure, so we are expecting a full year surplus. We're getting to evaluating our year-end results. We still need to have them audited, but we are expecting a full year surplus.
Okay. Commissioner Salemi?
yeah, I thought for a second when you said it was 98 point something percent of everything that you were, in the past, we've always talked about the collections on revenue. So there's always some percentage that we didn't collect for one reason or another,
got
people didn't pay. I don't know if you can tell us that, or how are we doing with that? We've made tremendous strides in collecting. We used to have, huge, amounts of money that were owed to us, that we didn't collect. And I think we've got it down to minor amounts, but do you have that information at all, or?
I don't have where we stand today in terms of what's not collected, but it does say in terms of collections and liens, we had a full year budget and we exceeded that budget. We got to 123% of budget. So we did have more collection and lien revenue than we had budgeted, which to your point shows that we've been doing a good job of collecting.
But yeah, that's based on sales higher than what we expected. That's how we got to 123%.
Correct.
We sold more than we expected. But the other part of the question is, what we billed for that, and how much of that did we get paid for? So it's some minor amount that's usually reported at the Board of Finance level. You don't have to do it here. That's I'm
Yep.
just curious if the 98% thing had anything to do with it. It doesn't, obviously. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, Kelly told me it's in the cash flow report, so we'll have that available there.
So.
Which is part of the monthly report. But these, the numbers that Mike is talking about, obviously, is the numbers aren't real until they're audited, right? So we can assume what they are, but the report's going to show, when you look at that report, that this is a $2.9 million revenue increase versus expenditures for 2024. But again, it doesn't mean anything unless it's audited, right? So we got to go through the process, and in May, so when you get to cash flow report, you'll see these numbers in that report, but they're not real until the auditor says they're real. But it is, we're favorable 2.9 million as of today for 2024.
Yep.
Anticipate.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, opportunity for general public comments. Anybody in person or on the phone? Seeing, hearing none. Commissioner requests for future agenda items, anyone? Commissioner Slemmy.
Mr. Chairman, so today we received, and I didn't print it, I didn't have enough paper left, I don't have to print it. We got this, a report on hydro, on the various, hydro, projects that we looked at doing it. And I'm hoping that we can, get a chance to digest that. Those are older reports. I think one of them's from 2006, and I remember going through each one of them. But I do think that the governor's made some money available to do clean energy projects. I would gotta believe that hydro is considered a clean energy project, but that we, for a future agenda item, that we discuss the possibilities for hydro at all of our facilities, whether or not it might work in one or another. And I'd appreciate it if we can have everybody get a look at that report that came, I think it was just today. I got it today.
We sent it out today, yes.
Yeah, right.
This issue's been, I think, Commissioner Slemmy's asked about this before, and I've mentioned before, we've done these studies. And at the time, when we did the studies, it wasn't a feasible option for low flow at Goodwin. We've talked about the 2003 legislation that was passed, deregulating power companies, which eliminates our ability to get the Z credits or the clean energy credits. But we've talked about it, but the reason why we sent this out was we would like to put this on the next Water Bureau meeting for the future, and we could talk through it, so.
Yeah, and I had thank you, Scott. I had a conversation also with our new ICA, and I know that she was interested in hydro as well as a source of revenue. And things have changed. Like I said, there may be some money available, but there are also DEEP, I believe, has got a whole program where they're looking at smaller and smaller hydro things because it is a clean energy source. So if we can get it on an agenda, I'd be happy. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bet. Anyone else? Commissioner Gale, you had one at a prior meeting. I was just looking for it because we didn't add. I'll go back and look at that because you had an item you wanted to add to the agenda.
Can you explain the water commercial religious? What does that mean?
Where's that, Commissioner? Oh, the water revenue?
I'm sorry, the what?
416220.
Commercial industrial? They'll come back.
I think was the question water, commercial, religious? That's just like area churches or synagogues, like
okay.
religious facilities.
Why do they call commercial?
I think we just have it as a subset of our commercial water, but it's not a commercial institution. It's just the way it's accounted for.
Okay.
And the second question is water resale raw. You have zero. Can you explain me who buys that resale raw water and why it is zero this year?
Yes, Commissioner. So as you know, our raw water mains, so obviously raw water means it's not treated, right? So it's our raw water system coming from either Nepog or Barkhamsted, either to West Hartford or to Bloomfield. And there's very few opportunities for raw water. One opportunity is to sell raw water to New Britain, which was part of the 1960, whatever that date was, where we could sell them raw water for whatever reason during droughts, those kinds of things. We have not had not a lot of opportunity there. But we should have a raw water number for the Sundown Ski Resort. Yeah. As you might remember, they are very close to Lake Madonna, and we did do a project with them where they actually have raw water that comes in and they use that to make snow. So, we don't have a number for that?
We do, for resale of raw water, we have an actual this year of just over 43,000.
Okay,
So
so
there is some.
So that is the ski resort, that we, Sundown, that we sell raw water to.
What's the New Britain capped at 10 million gallons?
It's a max of 10. I think it's 5 million a day, max of 10.
10, yeah.
And we just don't, there's not a lot of opportunity there. The treatment system in New Britain is different than ours, and it creates problems for them to use our water because of pH levels, and so there's not really an opportunity there for us. But maybe someday.
John, I looked it up. It was about, you want a presentation about the possibility of MDC installing utility conduits during MDC sewer or water projects that could house other utilities. So I'll ask the clerk to add that to the next agenda.
Thank you. It's in the minutes from the last meeting, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. If I may,
Yes, go ahead.
there's one important one we need to talk about. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, is, it's January, but spring's gonna be right around the corner, and we really need to advertise for lifeguards in the February timeframe, the February-ish timeframe. We've been very unsuccessful, as the state in recruiting since COVID. COVID has changed everything. So, we have and we're paying for lifeguards, I think $21 an hour. We offered $21 an hour. Last year, we only got one application. If the board so chooses to want to try and reopen swimming at Lake Madonna, we're gonna have to go higher than $21 an hour. So we need to have that conversation at the Water Bureau to figure out to what level do we go to raise that rate. The challenges are our college interns are, I don't think it's at $25 an hour, but we have to have the conversation because we're gonna need to make those decisions in that late February, March timeframe.
I'll add that on. No one else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. So move, second, we got it. Thank you, everybody.